You're listening to The Business of Healthcare with me, Habanero, and I've got a special guest in the studio this afternoon. So I'd like to take a minute to introduce Mr. Bert Lurch. Bert is the CEO of eCentral Medical Management. It's a one-stop shop dedicated to helping doctors focus on being doctors. Bert holds a BA in management. He's an American College Health Executive. He's on board member on the Health and Business Alliance, and he's also a member of several professional organizations, including the Healthcare Billing Management Association. Oh boy, there's more. The American Health Information Management Association, AHIMA, which is where I got all that terrific information that I shared with you about the changes for LGBT, and the AMA, the American Medical Association. Bert and I are both also members of the Healthcare Introductions Networking Group, which is a really excellent group of people who work primarily with the healthcare world. Bert's an entrepreneur and frequently speaks to medical practice audiences on the importance of balancing resources to manage administrative tasks without sacrificing service to patients. Bert's got a unique perspective on some of the opportunities that are currently available in the healthcare arena, some vision into what opportunities are available into the future for those willing to take on the challenges, and hopefully that's some of the stuff we're going to talk about today. So good afternoon, Bert, and welcome to the Business of Healthcare.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
And welcome to WUSB.
Thank you.
So, all right. So if you're interested in connecting with Bert, you can get his contact information on my playlist on our website, and we'll be giving it out as we go along. But so that was a good introduction. Thank you for that, because a lot of times my guests don't leave me with good information.
Yeah, that was written by a friend of mine, and after I went through it, I said, wow, you're making me sound pretty good. But yes.
So tell us a little bit about like your background, like where do you come from, where'd you grow up?
Right. So I grew up out in Springfield Gardens, Queens, and I guess my first entrance into this world is in high school. I went to high school, Hillcrest High School, and they had a health career program, and I got accepted into that. So initially, I was supposed to be a dental assistant, but I got a little tired of peering into people's mouths, and I didn't think that was going to be it for me. So, but I finished, and I was a dental assistant out of high school, and I went on to college in Brooklyn. Long Island University, and at that point I was looking to go into physical therapy, and I did all the first couple of years of studies for that, and that chemistry was pretty tough, but I got through with it. But I realized that, and at the same time I was working at Long Island Jewish Hospital, so those two things were happening at the same time. I was working at LIJ and going to school to Long Island University. And at that point, I started to realize that the clinical side, I wanted to be in the healthcare area, but the clinical side, for some reason, didn't seem to be my thing. I really wanted to get into the business side. So after some time, I realized it was time to change gears and go into the business side of medicine. And that was kind of the beginning. So it was always in my DNA because my mother worked at Parker, and my father worked at LIJ, so I had no choice. My sister was in HR at I think it was St. Vincent's Hospital. My other sister was a nurse, so my family is in this industry. So I knew that I was going to be in there where, well, I found that out now. So I found my space, and that's why I'm here now today. So that's a little bit about my start.
That's one of the things I always tell people. I say, I know a lot of things, but you do not want me anywhere near your patients.
Right. Definitely not.
Yeah, I don't have the demeanor for it. And okay, so you really got a lot from all of that experience. And what is it that you're doing now?
Well, so right now I have a medical management company, and this company has grown over the years. We're about 16 years in. And hopefully we'll talk a little bit more about how that works. But after 16 years, the company started out of a house, my family home. And this company, because I have a business partner, his name is Burke, and we worked in the hospital at LIJ, like I said. And what we did, we took the years in the hospital and paid attention to everything that was going on. So one of the things I always talk about to people, like as being an entrepreneur, you never know how much information you could get in the position that you're currently in. So sometimes people are in a job and they're like, this job sucks, or this is not really where I want to be. But at the same time, you can get a lot of valuable information from where you're at, and it may help you down the road. So those years at LIJ, I was able to learn and understand the larger business, how it works, HR, just so many different areas, how they allocate resources. I took all that information, and then what we did is we created a company that would help the doctors on Main Street, because they did not have the resources that the hospital has, the expertise. They just can't afford to have it. So we said, you know what? We're going to create a company. We're going to help you guys out. And our initial line of business was basically billing and collections, or medical billing, and making sure the doctors were being paid. Because at that time, electronic billing was kind of new. And we were able to say, listen, we could submit your claims to the insurance companies and make sure it's paid quick and paid fast. And also we can put software in your office so you can see what's going on. So that was our way into the business at that time.
It is so interesting to hear that, because it wasn't that long ago. And at that time, that really was a huge selling point and a huge hook, because these doctors, they go and they learn all this stuff, but they don't learn the business end of things. And then they go out there and they try to open up their own practice. And I think in the olden days it was easier, but now there are so many facets to try to manage and take care of and be completely on top of and worry about going to jail over that. And the margins are so much thinner than they ever were, that it's just such a totally different world.
Yeah, definitely, you hit it on the head. I mean, I always speak to this saying of, doctors used to be able to just hang up a sign and say that medical office open, appointments available, and 9 times out of 10 they would fill up, the doctor would be successful, and those days are gone. A lot of us think that doctors, just because they have an MD a title, have a lot of money. And it's not necessarily the case. And you hear a lot of doctors telling their kids not to go into medicine because it's not as profitable as it once was. So what's happening now, based on what you just said, there's so many doctors out there that are not business minded, and they really wasn't supposed to be. There's studies showing now the amount of kids going into medical school that are now going to get their masters and their MBAs at the same time, because they know how important it is to have that business background. So you're seeing that, I think the numbers like tripled on the amount of students that are going for the MBAs and for their medical degree at the same time, because they know that's the only way they're going to survive.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So, all right, that's a heck of a lot of background for you.
Yes.
So, and so what, you had a specific topic that you wanted to bring to the table today, and I thought it made a lot of sense, because we're here at a state university. There is a hospital affiliated with this university. There are lots of students who are not only taking health care delivery training, but also all kinds of research studying and business stuff. So what is it that we're going to talk about today?
Well, one of the things I want to talk about definitely is, when we talk about entrepreneurship, people only think of an entrepreneur as someone who starts a business, gets rich, and that's an entrepreneur. Or someone maybe starts a little business out of their house. But in reality, you can be an entrepreneur in your own. You could work at an organization to be an entrepreneur. You can use all of the different things that entrepreneurs use in your daily life, and also in your job that you're in now. So we have students that are looking to get into different things. Sometimes they're not looking at different ways that they can start a new business. And what I do is I go around and talk to many people, whether it's people coming out of medical billing programs or people who are going into like how to start a small business. And I go through different ways that they can be successful by using entrepreneurial traits, I would call them. So those are the things that, I try to communicate over to many people.
In fact, I remember that's one of the first things when I first met you. So I have been doing this healthcare reimbursement stuff for many, many years. And I, throughout my path, discovered that, medical coding is going to become more and more important. So I got certified as a medical coder. Now, for a lot of people, getting certified as a medical coder is a vocation in itself. For me, I just wanted to have it to supplement the rest of the work that I do. And I remember that when you graduate and you pass this horrendous test and you get your certification that you're a coder, they give you this letter A and they call you an apprentice, and you have to really go through an awful lot to get rid of that A, and people won't really hire you until you get rid of that A. And I remember talking about it to you, and you said, send those people to me. I hire them. They make the best employees. So talk a little bit about that, because there are so many people. That's what happens. They get talked into going for these little programs. The school makes the money, and then the person is dumped.
Definitely. It's about 5 years ago, I would put out an ad for a medical biller. And I am telling you, I would get 100 emails within 2-3 days. And all of the emails were from potential candidates that finished programs. However, they had no experience. And every one of them would tell me, or if we would bring them in, I'm really smart, I'm really good, but I have no experience. And I started to realize, there's something wrong with the system here, because so many people, medical billing was the thing to do. It was even on TV. Become a medical biller, you can make X amount of dollars. But then it got flooded. And so many people took these classes. The schools, what happened with the schools, they started pumping them out. People were getting loans for them, right? And to pay, and they didn't get a job afterwards to pay back the loans. So then the loans would start to default, and then you would have all type of other problems because now the schools wouldn't get approved for those loans. So it's kind of a vicious cycle. But getting back to where, what we did at our organization, we realized that there's a lot of people out there that are very smart, that may change careers, or just needed to find their right way, but they need that little bit of help, that little bit of assistance. So we had a program where we would work with some of the schools, and sometimes we went out even in the community or just put the word out that we're willing to bring people in and potentially train them so that we can kind of get a feel of who they are and how they work, but also give them that little extra help so that one, either A, we would hire them, or potentially B, now they have that hands-on experience. So if you had your hands-on experience with a billing company, a doctor would now potentially hire you because they're not looking at your resume and comparing it to the other 100 that said they graduated from one of the local schools with a billing certificate. And there's no difference. You have to stand out. So that's one of my entrepreneurial traits is you have to be different. You have to stand out a little bit. And what does that mean? You have to be the one that's willing to go to a billing company, go to a doctor's office, go to a hospital and say, I'll volunteer. I'll do whatever it takes in order to get some sort of education and hands-on. And yeah, you may have to take one step backwards and you may not get paid, or you may get paid minimally, but you got to understand you have to be willing to do what the other people are not willing to do, because so many people really, and it's a shame that so many people come out of schools, all type of technical schools, and then they don't get the job immediately and they give up and they go back into a career that they really didn't want to be in.
Yeah, so there's like so many things that I want to talk about that I'm like percolating. The first is, I think that I've been on both ends of that. So when I got my certification and I had that scarlet letter, that A at the end of my certification, I was not going to go take a coding job for 2 years to be able to say that's what I did. So that's exactly what I did. I found people who were willing to let me come in and do the work for them on a schedule that worked for me, because I run my own business. I couldn't do that full time. It wouldn't have made sense. But when I was done, I got attestations from those. One was a facility, one was a doctor's office, that yes, proficiency. I demonstrated proficiency. And then I had to have an argument with the certifying agency, because people don't come and ask to get rid of the A just because you did some part-time work for 6 months or a year. But I was able to demonstrate to them too. So it's that end of things. And then on the other end, when you and I are in the positions that we're in now, people in our positions, I think, don't see this often enough. It's a win-win. So you're helping somebody else. That's a win, right? That's a good thing to do, but it's a win for you too, because what did you find when you did this?
A good person?
Yeah. You got the first pick of that diamond in the rough.
Definitely. I want to add to what you're saying, because this is something that I didn't learn it when I started the business. I learned this from, again, back in my days in LIJ, which I will go back to that because it's important. It's that beginning time. We worked, when I say we, me and my partner Lewis, but we worked in the union. And what happened is they would pay us, or LIJ would pay us to go back to school to educate ourselves. So we took our billing and coding course, and it was all paid for. And at that time, my mind might have been a little bit more immature because I was young. And I would say, why are they paying us because we're going to leave, right? Or why are they doing that? But what I realized is a couple things. Number one, not everybody did really leave. That's number one. Number two, they were educating their people to have a better staff pool in-house, right? And you also build a little sense of loyalty they did by investing in you. And that's a good feeling. So now in my organization, I love it and enjoy when I hear that someone's going back to educate themselves. And you can always think in the back of your mind that, oh my gosh, they may leave us. But truth of the matter is, if someone's going to leave, they're going to leave. The reality is, though, but when you invest in those people, you're bringing better skills to your organization, and therefore that's going to stand you further ahead than the competition. So I really like that. That is very important. I signed off on 2 of those apprentices. I had to sign a letter recently for like 2 of my employees because they went back for their CPC, and hopefully if they're listening, please don't go anywhere. But the reality of the matter is it's important. There's another thing I speak about, a gentleman I met, and he always talked about, my employees are the best, and he was pushing up his collar, and I was like looking at him like, why is this guy saying this so strongly? But his whole thing was that I allow my staff to be educated. I send them for trainings and education. So I believe in that. So if someone comes to me in my office and say, listen, I want to go to this type of course, I'm going to consider that highly because, again, it just represents us. So it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and I want to continue along this discussion because, again, I'm hoping that in our audience is either parents with young people who are thinking about, what am I going to be doing for the rest of my life? People who are in transition saying, I worked in the financial industry, or I worked in this industry, or I did that thing and it's drying up, or I'm burned out on it and I want to make some changes. What are some of the kinds of things that you can just have as a mindset to be able to, and I'm going to give one of my favorite stories when I first started. So when I was younger, I was emancipated at a very young age, which meant I had to pay for my own bills. When I was 17 years old, I was paying rent and I had my own car insurance and all that. And that was not easy to do. You needed to have better than the regular job. So what I learned was, first of all, I looked much older than I was. I didn't look like I was 17. And bartending paid good money in those days. It probably still does, but So what did you do to get a bartending job? Well, I would dress up as a bartender and go and knock on doors and say, I'm ready right now. I'm ready to work, with the black outfit, with the bow tie and the whole bit. And people were impressed by that. So even if they didn't have an opening, sometimes I got a night or a shift just because they were impressed by that. So, and I think that's like one of the kinds of things that you can do to say, what can I do to stand out? Definitely.
There was an employee I had who just pushed her resume in our mailbox and called and followed up. And, if you're persistent, those opportunities will happen. You will make things happen. Again, you have to really push harder than the other person who's trying to get into that same position. And something to think about when we talk about whether it's any college degree you're going for, or if it's some sort of specialized certificate, you want to think that, where can I take this to the next level, and like some strategic thinking to see where can I angle myself. So like, for example, in the billing and collections industry, there's small little niche areas that you could become a little bit of an expert in and make yourself more sellable to a organization. So if someone came into my company and said, I've done billing for the last 4 years, but I have a strong expertise in workers' comp or no fault, I might look at them and say, this is interesting. So sometimes, we can have a wide array of knowledge, but at the same time, you want to focus in on an area that is something that is going to be important to someone who's trying to hire you. As the way our industry is changing now, we know there's a lot of things going on with data, analytics. That's a big deal. So if someone is really in that area or likes dealing with that, in the health business area, that's something you may want to focus on, because it's all about outcome, results, and you need to understand data and how to manipulate those things and be able to read them properly.
Yep. And I think that people get, especially when they're maybe younger and just starting out, or even I hear a lot of people do this. They'll be like, I can do anything. I'm really broad-based. I can do everything. And you know what? To me, that's almost a little bit of a turnoff, because it doesn't show that you did any research into what I might be interested in, or what I'm doing, or, what might be important to me. And I think that's another thing that's important for people to do when they're looking to connect with someone who's going to be willing to help them.
That's correct.
You are listening to WUSB Stony Brook and the Business of Healthcare with Habanero. That's me. And I have a special guest today, Bert Lurch from eCentral Management. And we are talking about entrepreneurship in the healthcare arena, and hopefully being able to give some inspiration or some thought to people who might be looking to get involved in, or maybe change their focus in the healthcare world. So good afternoon, Bert, and thank you again for joining me.
Thanks again.
All right, get back to my guest here today, Bert Lurch. And if you want to contact him, I'm going to give you a phone number and an email. And you can also find this information on my playlist at WUSB.FM. But the phone number is 516-775-8608, or you can email him at bertl@ecmmgt.com. That's ecmmanagement.com. And tell him, make sure you let him know that Habanero sent you, that you heard about it here on this program. So, what else? You said you had some interesting things that you wanted to talk about, again, to help people get ideas or to encourage them, or, what are we doing as business owners in the field?
Well, so right now, it's a crazy time. 8 years ago, 10 years ago in our industry, reimbursement was what it was better than what it is now. And I'm talking about reimbursement to the providers. There was a certain amount of jobs. Healthcare, we know, is a very huge industry, but there's a lot of changes. We know about what's going on the political side of things, but even with that,
I'm sorry, we don't know what's going on because they don't know what's going on.
Right. We don't know what's going on, which we know that, right? However, one thing is there's changes, and with change and with chaos, there's opportunity, right? And that's something that we have to look at. So for my organization, you the first thought is like, oh my gosh, where's the industry going? But at the same time, health care providers, and when I talk about providers, sometimes I'll say doctors, but it's more than just doctors, right? It's physical therapists, nutritionists, speech pathologists. We could go down the line, even pharmacists. So anyone who deals with in the medicine world, getting paid from insurance companies, there's a whole big business around that. And what happens is things are getting complicated, and because things are getting complicated, it requires someone to handle that, understand that, and be able to navigate. So for the people who are listening to this, and if they're thinking about getting into the business of healthcare, you should first of all think about starting really small, right? In this day and age, you can start a company right out of your house. No one would even know. Of course, people are doing it out of dorms. You can have 1-800 numbers. You can have multiple extensions. You can get capital. Capital has changed, right? Back in the days, you would have to either get money from a family member, which we did, or if you had good credit, you could get money from a bank. But times have changed now. The banks are a little tighter. But there's different types of lending. There's micro lending, where you have these companies who are willing to give out maybe not as much money, but they're willing to give it out to you if your credit may not be as good, and take the money back from you on a different way, maybe weekly or daily. So there's so many different ways and different things that you can do now that you couldn't do before. And I just want to let people know that if you're interested in any area in the billing world, credentialing world, coding world, quality assurance, compliance, there's a whole thing where we're talking about with security, IT. I mean, you could go down the line, and there's so many different areas that play back to healthcare, and it's not going away, right? We have the baby boomers, right? We're talking about so many of them will need different parts of the healthcare system. So anybody who's interested in going in the healthcare system, when you find that area that you're looking to go into, number one, if you want to work for an organization, then like I said earlier, you need to do everything that you can so you can stand ahead of other people. But if you also want to try to do something on your own, you can start very slow and quietly and do something, and next thing you know, you would not even realize how it can evolve. And I can tell you that firsthand, right? I started this company out of a house with me, my business partner, and one employee. Actually, one employee. And the company has grown and grown and grown, and we have over 50 people under the organization. We have about 30 in New Hyde Park, and we have multiple people in other areas outside of New Hyde Park. And this is something that started out of the house as an idea, and we needed to give a little bit of effect that we were bigger than what we were. So we would, again, like I was talking about, whether it's phone, whether it's the websites, you can really use technology these days to leverage and become a little bit bigger, or at least put yourself in a position to gain business. So don't worry about it. You can start small. Number two is join an organization. We never networked until later on in years. And I wish that I could bring back those years, but how they say it's supposed to happen when it's supposed to happen. And what I can tell you is I've been networking probably for the last 6 years, and our business has grown the most in the last 6 years. And sometimes it's hard because not everyone is a natural networker. I mean, it's hard for me even to be talking on the radio, and some people are like, Bert, you're kidding me. But it took time of like talking to staff, trying it out. You kind of have to practice to get to where you need to go. So when we're talking about joining an organization, meeting people, networking, the first time I went to a networking event, I remember it to this day. I sat or stood in the corner and I did not go up to one person. I was almost frightened. Right now, it's a whole different thing. In the Long Island area, I know probably about 75% of the people who network that's related into the healthcare field. So again, but if I didn't try it, I would not have done it. So join an organization is very important.
I think that's how we met.
Actually, we did. Networking event. And look, and
Well, now what I found was there are all of these different formal networking groups, right? So anyone who's in business that's done any of this networking stuff, you've probably heard of LaTip or BNI or Gotham. And those organizations really are terrific. And a lot of people swear by them. But the one thing that I found was a lot of times they are either industry specific or they're more B2C type things. Mm-hmm. And what I found was I belonged to one of those groups and they were all real estate. So the real estate agent referred to the title guy who referred to the attorney woman who would call in the painter or the carpenter or the contractor or the electrician, all around real estate. So they were all giving each other business. And I mean, I wasn't getting any, and it wasn't because no one liked me or whatever. It just wasn't my circle. So I said, you know what? I'm going to create my own circle. So I started this group called Healthcare Introductions, and it's 5 years now. Wow. And there are 60 different people on the email list, and the meetings we get, 15 to 25 people come to the meetings. We meet every month on a Tuesday morning, and it is all people who primarily work in the medical field with medical practices. And it's been such an amazing way to first and foremost learn about what's going on elsewhere in the industry. Mm-hmm. What kind of problems are people having? What kind of legal things are coming up that the attorneys have to get involved in? When all of the coding stuff and the documentation and the audits and the HIPAA and all this document management stuff, we had people in our group and everybody could talk about it. So that, if anyone's interested in finding out more about that, get in touch with me because, you just can't know enough people.
Yeah, the group is it's a great group, and you have to have that circle, that network. One of the things is our clients at this point, they look to us as their trusted advisor. So now, after the amount of years that we put in, it's to the point that we could have a doc ask us for anything, and we probably know someone. I mean, you could ask me for a guy who can redo your office because you need new furniture, and I have someone for that. Or you could ask me for, your malpractice insurance is skyrocketing. I have someone for that. That whole saying, I have a guy, but it's, having that circle, that network, and it goes totally to the other side. There's so many different people that are making money or are related to the business of healthcare, that, it's good to have these networks. So having that network is really important. And then you have to learn that you meet people and you do business with people. And one of the things that I also talk about and people really need to understand is you do business with people you like, right? So if, and granted that they have to be able to produce, but if you genuinely like someone, you are more inclined to do business with that person. So what does that tell you? That tells you that sometimes on the other end, you have to understand your position and how you're perceived and how you carry yourself out there so that you want to be that one that when it's time to do business, they're going to call on you. So, that's something that, we don't think about that, right? We have people out in different industries, or specifically our industry, that could be extremely smart and diligent, but if nobody likes them, that will run out after some time. But again, you can be well liked, but if you can't produce, that will also run out. So you kind of have to balance that, but it's very important for people to be aware of it.
There's another thing that I think is really important, and I come across this a lot. So what I do is fairly narrow niche. There are definitely people that do consulting and coding and audit support and the kinds of things that I do. It overlaps with a lot of things. But there are some people that do that, and they get very territorial and very, I don't know how to describe it, but maybe territorial is the right way to say it. And they don't want you anywhere near them because they don't want you to take what's theirs or what they kind of have in their pot. And my theory is there are at least 7,000 medical providers on Long Island. Not even that's Suffolk and Nassau. That's not even.
Don't talk about Queens.
I was going to say that's
Brooklyn.
not even
It's
the city
over there.
So I could never manage even a fraction of those. There is more than enough problems and business and help to go around. So I would rather get to know people who do what I do, because maybe you do some aspect of that better than I do. Maybe when I'm too busy with something, I'll want someone that I like and trust. That's two things you said were important. To be able to say, listen, I have more than I can handle right now, but I have this project, would you be interested in it? Geographically, maybe something is in an area that is not convenient for me, the project that I'm working on. So I am always happy to meet people who do things similar to what I do.
Very important, very important. And also a mentor. Sometimes it's difficult to find a direct mentor, right? Meaning when we started the business, it was hard for us to find someone. Many of the people who were in our industry at that time either were very large companies. Then there was quite a few people doing it from home. And we would try to talk to them and say, could you let us know how do you do this? It's the same thing Susan's talking about. And they would not give us any information. So it was a long road for us, a bumpy road, always going up, but always had these bumps because, we didn't have that roadmap. We did not have that booklet that says, okay, when this happened, you need to do this. So we learned by just trial and error, making mistakes, working hard, working late. But then you get to a point, after a certain amount of time what you're supposed to do. But if you can get a mentor, and a mentor doesn't have to be, again, in the exact same space that you're in, but someone who has a good understanding on business and has done some of the things that you're looking to do, you really should sit and talk to them, not just once, though, like over time. I have a group of friends that have been my mentors, right? Because they all have different areas that I pull from. I have a friend that's a dentist. I have a friend that's a State Farm agent. I have a friend that has run very high level stores, and they go to conferences, they do different things, and I pull from that and I bring it back to my organization. And it was funny when my organization would be 5-6 people, and I would come in there and I would tell them this new strategy, and they look at me like, oh my God, what is he getting into? But at the end of the day, what we have to realize is, on this point, is no matter what, you have these strategies, these things, these big companies spend multi-millions of dollars to implement and go through. Even a small business can do it. You just need to learn that information and get it. So sometimes a mentor can provide you maybe just a simplified version of things that they have been through that may help you go along the way.
So the other thing that a mentor can do is you can talk through your idea, and they can be devil's advocate in a safe environment and walk you through, what if this, what if that, did you think about this? So those are the kinds of things that I've always found helpful. The other thing, I think you and I are probably in a similar position, is not only do we look up to people to maybe help us and guide us along the way, and I still have one of my favorite people that I worked for, I kept in touch with, and he's in Illinois now, and he's got his own thing going on, but he's still there for me, and it's great. Like, we've kept in touch, and you get to the point where things shift a little bit, and maybe you're helping them too, and you don't realize it. And so the last point I want to make on that is, I feel like no matter where you are on that ladder or that progression up, you can have a hand up and a hand down, and you can be looking up for people to give you guidance and give you help. And even if you're just in the class and you understand the material better than the person sitting next to you, or it's your second class and it's their first class, you can help them. You can always be on both ends of that. You can be helping people as you get help, and I just think that's just such a good way to navigate.
Definitely. I just really believe in putting good things out there, learning from people, giving back. When you do that, it seems kind of cliche, but it really isn't. People are more inclined to help you. People will look out for you. And if you, again, it may not happen today, it may not happen tomorrow, but it will happen. Mark Cuban, I always say, said overnight success takes 10 years. It's real, because sometimes we do things and we expect the return immediately, and that's just not realistic. So that's all I wanted to say on that.
So my guest this afternoon, we got to wrap this up, because I am sure our next programmer is in the wings waiting. My guest today has been Bert Lurch, and Bert is the CEO of eCentral Medical Management, and they're a one-stop shop dedicated to helping doctors focus on being doctors. You can connect with Bert by calling him at 516-775-8608, and his contact information is on the website, the WUSB.FM website, my playlist. You can also get my contact information there. If you're interested in finding out about this networking group that we belong to called Healthcare Introductions, happy to share that information. If you have ideas for topics you'd like to hear discussed on this program,